I mean, we have an executive, and we have a judicial, and then a legislative, and then smoke bomb!
Because the justice system that convicted his only surviving son is the same justice system he's vowed to protect. And if that doesn't tell you who Joe Biden is, I don't really know what does.
I think I know what does.
Comedian and Daily Show host Jon Stewart just lit up Joe Biden and MSNBC with a scathing takedown over their shamelessly critical coverage of the Hunter Biden scandal. His brutal roast didn't just land. It shook the room, leaving Democrats scrambling to spin the unspinnable. Spoiler alert, it backfired badly. This was a showdown for the ages, and yes, I've got the receipts. But before we get into Stewart's epic takedown and the fallout that followed, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more unfiltered moments just like this.
Faith in the rule of law. Finally, Democrats have a moral perch from which they can judge without shame, hypocrisy, or nuance.
Joe Biden and the Democrats love to brand themselves as the party of integrity, champions of the rule of law, accountability, and moral high ground. It's their go-to narrative. But when President Biden pardoned his own son, Hunter, despite a long trail of controversies and ongoing investigations, that entire image shattered. The move didn't just raise eyebrows. It sent shockwaves across the political spectrum, leaving even longtime allies questioning where justice ends and favoritism begins.
Biden has issued a pardon for his son, Hunter Biden.
Mother... We were so close.
Even die-hard liberals like Jon Stewart were left stunned. Stewart, a longtime critic of right-wing hypocrisy, could hardly believe what he was seeing. The very party he had defended for years, the one that claimed to stand for integrity, justice, and transparency, had just betrayed those values in the most shameless, self-serving way imaginable. For Stewart, this wasn't just political, it was personal. The issue wasn't just Hunter Biden's behavior. It was the collapse of credibility from a party that once claimed the moral high ground. Watching it all unravel in real time, while media allies turned a blind eye, was the breaking point. It laid bare just how far the Democrats had drifted from the principles they once preached. And as the cover-ups mounted and the spin machines roared to life, the credibility gap widened into a chasm. For many Americans, it wasn't just disappointing, it was disillusioning. And for some, it marked the beginning of a long-overdue political awakening.
Obviously, Republicans are going to criticize, but Biden did make this line of attack particularly available, seeing as how he spent so long saying he wouldn't do it because of how much he respects the system.
Lying and bending the truth has practically become second nature to them. They parade around with moral superiority, pretending to be the guardians of justice and ethical leadership. But when the cameras are off and the spotlight fades, the mask slips, and the double standards are impossible to ignore. President Biden looked the American people straight in the eye and vowed he wouldn't pardon his son, no matter the verdict. That promise, like so many others, turned out to be just another line in a long script of political theater.
I'm going to do anything I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
Now, I'm not making accusations, but you can't help but wonder. Did Biden quietly try to sway the jury behind the scenes, hoping for a favorable verdict? And when that didn't work out, did he reach for the nuclear option? A presidential pardon to clean up the fallout? And you know who's been the biggest enabler through all of this? The so-called legacy media. But don't worry, we'll get to their role in this political cover-up later in the video. For now, just watch how Biden's decision became a political albatross, dragging down everyone tied to his administration. Cabinet members, press secretaries, and spokespeople were thrown into damage control mode, dodging questions, issuing vague statements, and performing verbal gymnastics live on national television. It wasn't just awkward. It was political theater at its worst.
Here's the thing. I don't know if you've ever found yourself in this situation.
Instead of leadership, we got damage control. Instead of transparency, we got spin, deflection, and deafening silence. The administration didn't step up. They circled the wagons, hoping the outrage would fade. But Americans were watching. Every awkward press conference, every dodged question, every carefully crafted non-answer only fueled the growing suspicion that something deeper and far more troubling was being hidden.
Do you think President Biden should pardon Hunter Biden?
So there are lots of claims of political prosecution and political
And was Hunter politically
I mean, obviously that's a judicial point, and then you've got to look at what the evidence is.
Honestly, it was almost comical watching Democrats scramble to defend Biden's decision once the cameras started rolling and the tough questions hit. What followed was a masterclass in political spin, or better yet, desperation. It quickly became one of those classic moments in American politics, an avalanche of word salads and rhetorical gymnastics. Officials rattled off lofty buzzwords and stitched together technical jargon that sounded impressive, but said absolutely nothing. This is the Democratic playbook in action: defend the party at all costs, no matter how indefensible the actions. Principles? Tossed aside. Accountability? Never heard of it. That moral high ground they love to brag about? Turns out, it's just a muddy hill when it's their own guy under fire. But the flip-flopping wasn't limited to Democratic officials. Next came the so-called objective media.
I mean, we have an executive, and we have a judicial, and then a legislative, and then smoke bomb!
Yep, that's your so-called unbiased, down-the-middle journalism at work. The same media that claims to hold power accountable suddenly morphs into Biden's personal PR team the moment things go sideways. Instead of criticizing him for blatantly contradicting his own stated convictions, they're bending over backward to defend his decision. But here's the part that really sticks with me. Why do I keep feeling like the Democrats were banking on a favorable verdict from the jury? Their early confidence was almost smug, constantly repeating that they would respect the jury's decision, no matter the outcome. Yet, the moment the verdict didn't go their way, the narrative shifted in an instant. It was damage control mode, and watching them pivot so quickly, as if they hadn't just promised the opposite, was nothing short of astonishing. It's as if they genuinely believed the system would fall in line with their expectations, and when it didn't, they panicked and reached straight for executive power. So much for conviction. So much for accountability. And of course, Jon Stewart didn't hesitate to call him out for it.
The justice system that convicted his only surviving son is the same justice system he's vowed to protect. And if that doesn't tell you who Joe Biden is, I don't really know what does.
I think I know what does.
First, the mainstream media, especially outlets like MSNBC, rushed to frame Biden's move as an act of fatherly love. They tried to tug at our heartstrings, reminding us that Hunter is Biden's only surviving son after the tragic loss of 2 children. It was a textbook case of emotional blackmail, hoping that sympathy would cloud our judgment. But when the American public didn't take the bait, the narrative shifted almost instantly.
Now look at the dance Democrats have to do.
Be honest, the only reason why they went after Hunter the way they did, and I've talked to many federal prosecutors about this, is because he's the president's son.
People have to remember, the president has lost 2 children already, and he does not need to lose another one.
That's when the media pulled out the old, well, Trump did it to defense, referencing Trump's pardon involving his daughter's father-in-law, as if that somehow justifies Biden's actions. Frankly, it was both hilarious and pathetic watching them bend over backwards to cover for Biden's latest blunder. Instead of holding him accountable, they scrambled to recycle weak comparisons and emotional appeal.
Crowing from Republicans, but we're talking about, Donald Trump is a convicted felon who literally had pardoned his daughter's father-in-law and just made him ambassador to France.
It wasn't journalism. It was damage control dressed up as reporting. The more they tried to spin it, the more obvious their bias became. They weren't informing the public. They were running PR for a flailing presidency, hoping we'd all forget. But we didn't. We saw through the charade. The comparisons to Trump fell flat because 2 wrongs don't make a right. Accountability isn't partisan. It's necessary. And the media's failure to deliver only deepened the public's mistrust.
Yes, 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 to everything that you guys were saying. If you hadn't made Hunter Biden not receiving a pardon the Mason-Dixon line of morality